Welcome everybody to Booze Hour Community Edition today. Today I've got a very special guest on, Alhagie Puye. I was just speaking with Alhagie and I mentioned to him, for all of the guests that I've actually had on the show so far, Alhagie has, when I mentioned that he would be on the show, he's so far got the most amount of folks that have expressed interest in actually checking out one of the guests on the show. All the other guests, everybody has mentioned, hey, I'm really interested in learning more about them. But Alhagie so far is the one that has gotten the most amount of folks saying, hey, really looking forward to hearing more about Alhagie. So really excited to have him on. Now, before all of that, I just wanted to go through just a couple things. If you are watching from YouTube right now, there's a subscribe button down here. Go ahead and click on that. If it is red right now, you'll turn it gray, and that means you're subscribed, and you'll see all of the future content as it's released on this YouTube channel. If you're watching from LinkedIn right now, that's a new thing. I just got my LinkedIn live broadcaster flag or stamp of approval. So now I'm on LinkedIn as well, streaming. And on there, if you go back into my profile, you'll be able to see previous recordings from LinkedIn. We just had one so far earlier this week. And then I have links to all of the previous YouTube streams as well. So you can find them on there. But if if you do actually use YouTube, head over to youtube.com/DarylandBoo and click subscribe on there. And then you can receive the content via YouTube instead. All right, a couple other things. There's a newsletter that we have. So if you go to DarylandBoo.com, sign up with name and emails from there, you will get a weekly technical newsletter on all things Boo and Daryl, on all things F5, on Vancouver IT stuff in general, and on the industry in general. But trying to keep everybody informed. I was just saying earlier, usually we have F5 user groups in Vancouver. We don't have that right now, obviously, with what's going on. So this is a great way for us to stay connected with you. Yes, it's sort of one way. However, you can leave comments in the chat on YouTube, on LinkedIn. I'll see them. I can bring them up on here and we can discuss that kind of stuff. At any point, anybody can leave comments on there. So there's a newsletter on there. There's also a event calendar on there as well. So if you head to the site, there's a tab that says event calendar, and I actually load in all of the live streams that we have coming up as I get them booked. And so you can see who future guests are going to be as well on there. And we'll put that into the weekly technical newsletter. Now, that newsletter is actually one that Daryl currently sends out to all of our local customers here in Vancouver on a weekly basis. Next week will actually be the last of the weekly ones that Daryl will send out. If you want to continue getting the weekly technical newsletter from him, you'll need to sign up on the webpage, DarylandBoo.com, and then you'll continue to get that. Everybody who's currently receiving that email directly from Daryl is going to get converted into a monthly email from Daryl instead. Kind of a little bit more high level, not so technical. I think it's more the technical folks that want to get the weekly updates. So that's available for them on there. Lastly, I've still got a few more of these stickers. So where are they? Let's see if that focuses. There it is. So one of these beautiful stickers can be yours for free to any of the subscribers. Whoever wants one. So you just ping me, whether you ping me on LinkedIn or hit me up with a message on Twitter, or just email me, boo@f5.com, and I will hook you up with some stickers. All right. I think that is everything for little announcements for now. We got a great set of guests coming on for next week already. So check out the event calendar and you'll see who's coming on there. Otherwise, I'm going to bring on our guest today, Alhagie. Hey, Alhagie, how's it going?
I'm good, Boo. Thanks for inviting me to your show. I'm really excited.
Thanks for coming on. I know you were a super busy guy, and so we had to book this a little bit further in advance to find time. But you've moved up in the world. That's what we kind of wanted to chat about today. But you stay fairly busy.
Yep. I do.
Yeah.
So, as Scalar got acquired by CDW, so we're part of CDW Canada now, and taking on a new role there as Director of Solutions for CDW Canada. So really excited to be in that role. In that role for about 6 months now. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So we kind of wanted to talk about, how you've progressed through your career. When I first met you, you were in network engineering. You were actually a manager, I believe, at the time, and then you really just kept moving up from there. And I've watched you do so. But maybe we can even rewind it even further than that, and people can learn a lot more about Alhagie. Now, you didn't grow up in Canada. You immigrated to Canada later on in life. So, let's say, let's date back. When did you actually first started getting into computers in the first place, and where you grew up?
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. So, step back a little bit. I'm originally from Gambia, West Africa. It's the smallest country on mainland Africa. Grew up there, went to school there, did my high school there. I wasn't exposed to computers. I mean, I'm not that old, but when I was growing up, computers were things that you only read about in books. Actually, I remember when I was in high school, we actually had a typewriter, and my aunt was actually the secretary for the school. So when I started corresponding to universities in the UK and in the US, I would actually write the letters, and I'll give it to her. She'll type them for me, and I'll send them snail mail, right? So that just gives you an idea as to what I grew up around. So as I said, I went to high school there. I was always interested in sciences. Technical drawing was also one thing I was interested in. So I knew that engineering was probably what I was going to do, whether it was going to be civil engineering or electrical engineering. At the time, I wasn't thinking of computers because, again, I wasn't really exposed to them. That's what comes with growing up in a third world country, if you want to call it. So I graduated high school in '93, and I knew that to further my education, I needed to leave the country because, again, being a third world country, we actually didn't have a university. We did have a college there, but only provided three different majors, if you want to call them: agriculture, teaching, and nursing. Those were the three options. So, as I said, I was more interested in engineering, or maybe even becoming a doctor, because sciences was really what I was interested in. So, anyway, I ended up applying to some universities in the UK and in the US because it's an English-speaking country, so you gravitate towards those two countries for university, higher education. I got accepted into a school in the US. So that's how I ended up in the US. Came to the US in, I think it was '94. And my exposure to computers actually was in a library. These were the days when you went to the library to actually check something out. There was a kiosk in the library. You put in your information and you check out the books. That's my first exposure to computers. And I remember, I was just hooked. Just my first exposure to it. But I really didn't spend as much time on computers until, believe it or not, when I started working at McDonald's, of all places.
Wow.
I didn't have much skill. So this was probably a year or so after I came into the States. Just wanted to get a job, to just pay some bills here and there. And working at McDonald's, started at the bottom, like flipping burgers, but then I put my heart into it. For me, that's the key. It doesn't matter what you find yourself doing, just give it 100%. So anyway, I gave it 100%, and I stood out. Again, McDonald's is one of those environments. A lot of people have worked at McDonald's, and usually it's kids in high school that really don't take the job that seriously, but that's just the environment. And I actually looked at it differently. So anyway, I ended up being promoted, became team lead, and all the way to assistant manager. Now, why this is important is that in those days, as a manager, you were doing two things. One was hiring people, but also, ordering the supplies. So, hamburger buns and, cheese and patties and things like that. That was done on the computer. And I remember the system we had was, it was DOS, and it was Lotus 123 because it's a spreadsheet. So you go in there to put it in. And I just really liked it so much that I said, you know what? I'm actually going to go buy a computer and take it home. So that's what I ended up doing. I bought a used computer, which was good because what it led to was when I bought the computer from Sam's Club, which is a discount warehouse, I took it home. it was returned, which is why the price was so low. And it was running Windows 95. But what ended up happening was the hard drive was full. So I wanted to clean the hard drive, but not knowing much about computers, I started deleting files. Obviously, I was deleting system files, and it would crash the system. The good thing was it actually came with a restore disk. So I'll just delete a bunch of files, restore it, and then make sure that I don't delete those again. So that's how my exposure to computers actually started. So I'm self-taught. Lot of, everything I know, well, almost everything I know about computers, it's just self-taught. So, I took it to the next level. I went and bought a bigger hard drive. I installed it, but in those days, the PC actually doesn't see all of the boot sectors, all of the sectors on the drive, because they can only see so much. So I had to install an enabler driver for it, so I was able to see it. So as you can see, I'm spending more time on the computer opening it. I upgraded the memory from 8 megs to 24, so I bought a 16, put it in there. In those days, that's what you did. So anyway, long story short, I ended up buying books on Word, on Excel, on Outlook, things that people take for granted today. But in those days, actually buy a book and you walk through, it would tell you if you want to highlight something, this is what you have to do. Here's the steps, right? So I did that for about a year, and I was just hooked. Again, I looked at it more as, like Lego. It's just fun. I'm not doing it because I see a career out of it. And then I decided that I wanted to leave McDonald's. So I started looking for a job. I wasn't looking for a computer job. I was actually just looking for any job. Walked into a local bank and spoke to the secretary, and she said, hey, you know what? They interview people on Tuesday. I think it was a Monday. She said, just come back on Tuesday. They will just interview you on the spot. I said, sure, no problem. So I came back the following day with my resume in hand, and she introduced me to the VP of Human Resources for the bank. Sat down with her, conversation went really well. She hired me on the spot. She hired me as a teller. I said, no, that's fine. That's an upgrade for me, going from McDonald's to a teller. So I was really excited. But something interesting happened. When we decided that I was going to come back, I was supposed to come back the end of the week for orientation. But while I was waiting for this, he actually had a conversation with the lady who runs the IT department. And somehow she looked at my resume, saw that, I knew all these things about computers, Word, Excel, Outlook, all of those things. And she said, I've been actually looking for somebody like this for the past 2 years. I would want to speak to him. So they brought me back the following day, and she interviewed me, so she provided me, she gave me a job on the spot as help desk. So I started at the bottom, and in those days, help desk really was, a bank that had, 4 or 5 floors. You had the president of the bank, the CEO, the VPs, they were all there. When their word is misbehaving, they called you, and you just walked over there and you tell them, hey, can you step aside? Let me take a look. So there was that people element of it. That was really what I enjoyed the most. I mean, again, it's technology, but it's interacting with people. So I really enjoyed that job. I did it for a couple of years, and I moved up. So went from help desk to, it expanded to doing servers. So I started doing Windows NT at the time, helping the server team. And then I developed an interest in networking. But at the time, there wasn't really too much to do. We had a PBX on premise, and RJ 45, punch down blocks, all of those things. Networking was just beginning to pick up, and I was very, very interested in it. But for me, because I was so interested in it, and as you can tell, how I get myself going when I put my mind to something, I said, you know what, I'm going to do the A+. So I ended up doing the A+. And then I did some of the MCSC exams, so NT4, I got that, and I wasn't going to stop there. The next one for me was the CCNA, so I did the CCNA. Even though I wasn't doing much networking at the time, I was so interested in it that I decided to get my CCNA before it. And then the bank got bought out by Wells Fargo. We were given the option to move to other locations. I was in New Mexico at the time, a small town. I actually looked for a job, and because of my background and the CCNA I have, I ended up with a job in Colorado working for an ISP. That was an eye opener. So you can imagine in those days, when ISDN was what people ordered, and dial-up was really big. So that was actual networking. Working in that environment for a couple of years, that gave me a lot of experience in networking. And then I decided to immigrate to Canada. So I came to Canada in 2002, beginning of 2002. That was right after September 11th. The economy is tanked, and there wasn't a lot of IT jobs around. So I was actually doing consulting because I had made some connections in the US. So I was doing some consulting there. And then the first job I actually got in Canada was with a company called DataWave. And this was in 2004. So the economy started turning around. I started there basically just doing everything for the Vancouver office, anywhere from help desk to taking care of servers to emails to, you name it. And again, it's the people aspect that always attracted me to what I did. That was really cool. So, it's an office of about maybe 75 people. And if they have any challenges with anything, I'll just jump in and help them with that. So very, very interesting. And then, I ended up getting a job with a company out in Richmond. The company I was working with was DataFile. DataFile was where I was working for. The second job I got was with DataWave. That was when I actually got exposed to F5 load balancers. So that was the first time that I heard about F5. Again, I moved more into a networking role. I had two data centers, one in Richmond and one in Vancouver. So I helped them with that. They were card processing company. So in the old days, when you walked into a 7-Eleven, you'll buy a calling card. I know nobody buys a calling card today, but in those days, you buy a calling card, you need to call family and friends who are not local. The value of the card would actually be on the card itself. And obviously that's too risky. So what this company did was actually worked with card providers like TELUS and Bell and make sure that they provided the backend processing for the cards. So there's no value on it until it's actually swiped at the till. So that was a company that I worked for. Was there for about 8 months. I actually didn't want to leave because I really enjoyed the job. But then I got aggressively recruited by a company called Riptown. I'm sure you know who Riptown was, and I couldn't say no to them. They really were interested in me joining them, and they tried and I ended up there. It was probably one of the best career moves that I made because talk about being exposed to technology left and right. They were an online gaming company, so had a lot of money, and technology was really what their business was. So spent 5.5 years there, and then I started as a network engineer, moved into a team lead role. So I had a team of about 6 people across the globe with 4 data centers. And then by the time I left, I think that was when I met you when I was at Riptown. But by the time I left, I had moved into an operations manager role, leading the Vancouver team. So I was the line manager for Vancouver, but with 10 people on the team. So I was always passionate about leadership, even though technology is how I got there. But at the back of my mind, I always knew that leadership was really where my passion is. So, yeah.
That's really cool. There's a lot to unpack there, and I know we'll have some stuff to unpack on the more recent years as well. But a couple of things I wanted to ask you about. Did you immigrated to the U.S. on your own?
Yeah, I did. So I left home when I was, I think I just turned 16. Yeah. So but that's very common though. If you're from a place like the Gambia, you're so excited about the opportunities that are available to you that you look beyond your age and the fact that it's just you. You're so motivated, right? So.
Wow. So, moving out I can't imagine moving out when I was 16 years old. I don't think I'd have the responsibility to be able to do that. Were you a pretty responsible person? If that's a pretty common thing there, being out on your own at 16 is common. You're okay like that?
Yeah, so I was prepped for that. I think that it's multiple parts. The first one is my background. In my culture, you're prepared for things like that. It's also part of my personality. I've always been responsible, even all through high school. But also, I went to a boarding school for high school, and that actually made a huge impact in my life. So for the 5 years of high school, it was a boarding school that's actually run as a city. So you're taught about discipline. You're taught about responsibility. You name it. So that really prepared me. So from that perspective, I was really prepared. But as I said, the most important thing was that I was really excited about the opportunities that lie ahead of me. My plan really was to come to the States, do my bachelor's degree, do my master's degree, and then just go back home. Obviously, you have a plan for life, and you get dealt with reality, right? So, but if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't change anything about it. Yeah. So.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So, I was just going to say I started working for Riptown. So Riptown shut down operations in Vancouver because of the business that they're in. And I'm not going to go into detail on that. But at the end of the day, they decided that they were going to shut down operations here. I was actually given an opportunity or a chance to move to other locations, so either Montreal or London or Barcelona. So at the time I was married, and we decided that this is really where we want to stay. So I decided not to move with them. And I was at a Cisco event locally. They were just asking, how business was going. I told them about, the fact that, they were shutting down shop, and I was going to be looking for a job. Spoke to one of the managers on the Cisco side. He says, hey, you have your CCIE, they're highly in demand. I know people that would want to have you on the team. Why don't you just send me your resume? And I did. And next thing you know, I'm talking to Tom Jacoby from IO Secure. Had coffee with him. He told me about his business, and it was being a contractor, and we're just started a family. So the appeal of working from home was just, I was all over that, and that was how I got into contracting. So I did that for 4 years, and it was at BCLC, and yeah, it was an amazing experience. The folks at BCLC, they were really great, right? So made some great
we got a comment from Matt from BCLC there.
Nice, yeah. Matt and Drizzy, yeah, great guys there. Yeah. So yeah, I worked with those guys very closely on some high-profile projects that they have. It was an amazing time. So that's how I got into contracting. And then, the kids got a little bit older. They started going to daycare. My wife went back to work, and I really wanted to find a company that I could grow with, and I wanted to get back into leadership. So I started looking. And found, Scalar Decisions. I started with them in February of 2015. And yeah, so the rest of it is history.
Wow. So a couple other things I thought we could unpack from that as well. And you mentioned the, hold on. We got another comment from Matt here. Miss you.
No, those are great guys, great guys at BCLC. Yeah. Super fun. I really felt part of the team. And even though I was a contractor, it really did feel like I was part of that team.
Yeah, I love going up there too. So education seems to be a common theme, as well as leadership, but education seems to be a common theme. You got your certifications early on, A+, MCSA, even in the NT4 days. You did the CCIE. And we've had on another previous CCIE as well, but CCIEs are no joke. Like if you've gotten a CCIE, and I believe your CCIE is in the 20,000 range, so that's still one of the really early CCIEs as well. But that's something that you wanted to pursue. You felt like that it was really important to have as part of your career.
Yeah. So anything that I get into, I give it 110%. And being that networking is what I decided on specializing on, to me, getting the CCIE was the ultimate destination. Now, when I left the Gambia, as I said, my plan was to, come to the States, do my bachelor's, master's, and then just go back. Now, I ran into some challenges with getting my formal education, but what ended up happening was that I was exposed to computers, and because I'm a logical person, mathematically, I've always been really good at that. Computers just resonated with me. It doesn't surprise me that I ended up where I ended up. But what computers as I guess IT as a career afforded me was the ability to learn on my own and be able to provide value to the business or the company that I'm working for at the time. And the CCIE for networking, as you mentioned, is the ultimate price, if you want to call it that. So I set out to get my CCIE I started studying in 2007. So after I started working for Riptown. And when it comes to availability of technology or the value of technology, Riptown was probably the best environment that I could have been in, because you get exposed to high you think of the technology, it's available, right? So I thrived in that, and I set my goals. I said, you know what, I'm going to go get the CCIE. But I started at the bottom. By that I mean I'd already gotten my CCNA. I'd already started working on my CCNP, so I worked through that. And then in 2007, I sat to the written exam, routing and switching, and I was able to pass that. And then started studying for the lab, which was the ultimate exam, right? So I studied for 2 years,
Wow.
and yeah, it was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears for sure. And you could just imagine, this was before I was married, so kudos to my wife. I had to say no to a lot of things. We're going to this wedding, we're going to this function. I said, no, I can't. So you have a full-time job. You get off work. You have dinner, and then you go at it. Put in 3-4 hours in the night, get some rest. Rinse and repeat, right? So you keep doing that, and on the weekends, there's 8-hour labs that you actually have to do, because you're trying to mimic the real exam as much as possible. But for me, I was really focused on what the end goal was. So anything that kind of prevented me from getting there, it's just a bump in the road, and I just figured out a way to overcome that. So it was very satisfying. I ended up getting it in 2009. I got my routing and switching after 2 years, and I actually attempted 3 times. And it just speaks to dedication and determination, because one of the tidbits I would share is my first attempt, I took it because in North America, you can only take it in 2 places. So San Jose and Research Triangle Park. So that's in North Carolina. So these are the 2 places. Obviously, being in Vancouver, California is much closer, shorter flights and all of that, same time zone. So I decided to go take it there. So I went in, I think it was in February, I went there, and I didn't pass the first attempt. But it's a good learning lesson, because you know what you missed, what you need to redo, and all of that stuff. Come back, and then I rebook, and I think it was in April. Anyway, book my flight, my hotel, all of that stuff. There's a bunch of logistics around it. I go to the airport, spoke to the immigration officer, and he said no. For whatever reason, he said no. He says not going to let me through. I'm like, okay, well, that's just that. So I lost my my exam fees, my flight, my hotel, all of that stuff. So what I ended up doing was I said, you know what? If I'm going to have challenges at the border, I'm just going to go to Europe. So I decided to actually go to Brussels instead to go do it, right? So the reason why this is important is, if you want something badly enough and you're willing to do what it takes to get it, you'll get it in the end. So that's kind of why I wanted to just share that. To me, that was just a bump in the road, right? So, and then I got my second CCIE in 2013, and that one actually didn't take as much effort on my part, because when you take a look at the CCIE, it's way beyond knowing the material. There's a lot of logistics around it. So, making sure that you have enough sleep before the night, making sure that, you have a strategy when you go into the exam, because it's 8 hours, and don't try to be cute and get 100% if you're on a specific task. If they say there's 3 ways to do this, of 2 ways, you don't know the third way, and it sure happens that, that's the third way they want you to put in place. If you don't know how to do it, just get it over with and lose those marks and move on to the other test. So there's a bunch of time management there. Those things transfer from one CCIE to the other. So when I did the security one, I actually didn't have to relearn a whole bunch of this stuff. So that's how I ended up with the second one. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool. We have Derek Dodds left you a nice note here as well, fellow
Derek,
CCIE.
yeah, Derek Dodge, yeah, great guy. Hey,
Yeah.
Derek.
Oh, that's cool. So, I love the idea of like your perseverance and people, when maybe for younger folks that may or may not be listening to this, when you want to look at somebody who's progressed really far, it's one thing to do really well 9 to 5, but something like CCIE, two CCIEs, all the other certifications that you've done, that was all stuff that you've taken what you're learning in 9 to 5, but then you're also doing all of this stuff after hours to build on top of that. You're providing a value for your employer as well, like you're better at your job, but you're building up your own value through all this hard work that you're putting in.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, what I would say is there's a fine line that you don't also want to overdo it. By that I mean, I know it's easy enough for me to say now, but if there's something that I probably will do a little bit differently is maybe not to overdo it. By that I mean, look, you need your sleep. Your health is important. Don't spend the whole night studying when look, you need your sleep because you need your sanity and all of that. So that would be the one thing I would say. But if you put your mind to something, you also have to realize that you have to put effort into it, right? It doesn't matter how smart you are. You got to work hard at this stuff. So it's very, very important. But just be passionate. Passion is probably the most important thing. Throughout the whole time, one thing that kept me going is believing in something and actually wanting to do it. I think that's probably the most important thing. So whatever you end up doing, follow your passion. Be true to yourself. Ask yourself what it is that you're really, really excited about, what it is that you're interested in, and then hard work would just back that up, right? So, but you do need to put in the hard work.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. And all along the way too, you seem to be, anytime you're in a position, you seem to be able to move up through that position and put into leadership roles. How do you, what do you think that is attributed to when you're in those positions? Are you kind of the one that always volunteers to take on a task when it's something that other people might not want to do, and you're rallying people together around you, or what is it, do you think, that kind of moves you up through the roles?
Yeah, so I've been really fortunate. I mean, I didn't get to where I got to without help from others. A lot of people have helped me on the way, and I can give multiple examples. I seem to, there's an element of when I unpack how I got to where I got to, all the way from the Gambia to how I got into IT, to how I ended up in Canada, to the first job I got here. There always seems to be this one person that seems to be this invisible hand. I don't know if that's just luck, but I think at the end of the day, what I conclude is that it's all about people. We're in IT, we're in technology. There's a saying that every company is in the technology business, but I also believe that every company is in the people business. So I say that because I think it's my effort to make sure that I connect with people, whether that person is, a help desk, or they're the team lead, or they're the VP, or they're the CEO. Treat people as human beings and respect everybody. It's my working relationships. If there's one thing I can attribute to my success, one thing I can attribute my success to, it would be the way I treat people. That's so fundamental in everything that I do. And it just shows, right? So that leads to, working across the aisle. So, in an environment like CDW, where there's multiple teams, but we're all focused on taking care of the customer. To be able to do that, we actually need to work closely together. We need to collaborate. We need to be on the same team. So earlier on in my career, I came to realize that you're dealing with people. So whether that's finance, or that's implementation, that's accounting, it doesn't matter which team it is. You're dealing with people. So figure out a way to forge those relationships and know that you're a team player. And not to say that the knowledge or the technology isn't important, but it really revolves around people. So I would say that's the one thing that I would attribute to how I got to where I got to, is building those relationships and making sure that everybody is moving towards the same direction, and which is ultimately bringing value to our customers.
Well, that's great. And I think you're such a positive and likable guy as well, that's really important when you're networking with other folks as well, probably in your position, but outside of your position. And
Absolutely.
when you mentioned that, you were at a Cisco conference and you were just talking to someone and you mentioned something like the opportunity for them to hire you, or for them to place you with someone to get hired, it's because of how you've networked with them in the past and their impression of you, right?
Absolutely. No, it's very, very important. Again, it just comes back to the people, right? So even the folks on my team, when I talk to them, I talk to them as friends. I talk to them I talk to them as colleagues. You treat them like human beings. You listen, actively listen, some of the fundamental stuff, but you'll be amazed how that gets missed, right? Because you're so focused on the actual outcome or the technology that's going to get you there, but you forget about the fact that you're talking to a person, right? So it's a lot easier to get people to do things when they know that you genuinely care about them and you guys are on the same team. You don't have an ulterior motive. So that's always close to my heart, is making sure that I treat people with respect and
And I gotta say, that's probably led you straight into something like Scalar at the time, or now CDW Canada, in that once you move into the business side of IT and you're helping other folks out with their IT, that's like the ultimate people position. Like, you're constantly have a number of different customers of varying organizations and varying levels in the organizations that you're talking to about your solutions at Scalar. So it just seemed like a great fit for you when you moved over there, right?
Yeah. So, this was the first, you can call it a pre-sales role. And it was actually one way to challenge myself. I really resonated with the folks that I talked to when I was interviewing at Scalar at the time. And it's all about entrepreneurship and bringing in, deep expertise to focus on taking care of the customer. So, take all the, I don't know if you want to call it bureaucracy, but, all of the bumps or, red tape or whatever you want to call it, just focus on taking care of the customer. And that really resonated with me. And we still have that at CDW through the acquisition. But, it's a people business. And at the end of the day, people buy from people that they like. Again, I don't want to emphasize the importance of having the knowledge and be able to put a solution together. But at the end of the day, when you're dealing with customers, you're dealing with people. When you're dealing with people on your team, it's people. When you're dealing with, other teams in the company, it's still people. So fundamentally, it just comes down to that. And I just enjoy helping wherever I can. So one of the things I actually did, I started this when I was at IO Secure, but then I continued it on when I joined Scalar. I don't do it anymore, but I was actually teaching a networking course at UBC, and it was just an opportunity that just presented itself. It was through one of the guys that I worked with at IO Secure. He heard about the opportunity. He made it known to the rest of the team at IO Secure at the time. I said, I'm interested in it. So anyway, I looked into it and I ended up doing it for 4 years. But you can imagine every year having the opportunity to share your experience and your knowledge with 20 people that are mostly new immigrants to Canada, right? I did it for that reason. I wasn't doing it for the money part, but it was just so fulfilling, right? Just being able to almost like use it as a way to give back, right? So
yeah,
it's all about people.
That is really cool. Myself and Daryl left a comment on here as well, admiring your perseverance. But myself and Daryl are on a program advisory committee at BCIT, and I find that super fulfilling as well. Like being able to take what we learn out in the field and speaking to so many people and being able to feed that back into a program that is putting out more people and perpetuating our industry. And like you said, a lot of these folks, they're young, and a lot of them are immigrants as well. Common theme in Canada, especially in Vancouver. And so being able to add that influence to people and being that and contributing to that part of their life is amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing seeing some of those people progress through their careers, because I keep track of some of them on LinkedIn, and it's a very common question. Not just the material that they're learning from you, but they'll come to you and say, look, here's my situation. What would you advise? So you get an opportunity to talk to these people and provide them with meaningful feedback, something that they could use. Right? What should I do? These are my options. I'm thinking of this and that, and so it's great for sure.
Yeah, really cool. And then so if we go back to the Scalar experience, now you've moved up from there as well. So you became the lead of the solution architects, and relatively quickly moved into a management role at Scalar, right?
Right. So I started at Scalar in February 2015 as a solutions architect. So that's the pre-sales engineer, where the in front of the customers and talking to them about their business challenges. And that really resonated with me because, again, it's dealing directly with customers day in, day out. I did that for about 2 years, and the gentleman that hired me into that role actually left the company to join a vendor, and his role became available. But I guess his manager actually he had a conversation with me. So I'd made it known that leadership was something I was interested in. And we had a conversation six months prior. And at one point I was actually thinking, you know what, if I want to do this leadership thing and I want to focus more on it, maybe I should look for a leadership role somewhere. So long story short, I ended up being offered a role somewhere else, and I was going to leave, not because Scalar was in the right environment, but it was because I do want to move into a leadership role, and there wasn't one available at the time. So anyway, we chatted, and they said, hey, you know what? We've already marked you as one of the up and coming leaders, and we hadn't discussed it with you, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I decided to stay. And when my boss left, his boss, who was part of the conversation, told me, hey, you know what, the job is really yours. So that's how I ended up in the leadership role. And I was leading the BC team. It's about 5 people, but then it expanded. I took on Calgary a few months later because my counterpart there left and there was a vacuum. And then I ended up taking on all of Western Canada, so including our Edmonton branch. So I was leading Western Canada there for a couple of years. But I had an opportunity because Canada is a very vast country, different time zones. At the time, our headquarters, our headquarters still is in Toronto, but having your headquarters in Toronto, a lot of teams there, we had a bunch of challenges with time zones and distance and all of that stuff. But I took that challenge and turned it an opportunity to work more closely with those folks. And when we got acquired by CDW, I guess some of the things that we were doing here kind of stood out. Working across time zones, working across distances and things like that. So again, ending up in this role took a lot of working together and bringing teams together. I think that's the main thing. So yeah, I mean, the role I'm in now, I get an opportunity to do more of those because one thing I'm not a big fan of is silos. I like to bring down those walls. So at least in my role now, I get to bring different teams together. The team's about 90 people, pre-sales folks. So it's a very big team, right? So, but lots of opportunities, right? I mean, these two companies coming together just makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of things that CDW does really, really well, and a lot of things that Scalar did really, really well. So having the opportunity to bring those two elements together to have an even stronger organization to take care of our customers, I'm really excited about that.
Well, also got a note here from your former colleague Bill Cousins as
Bill
well.
Cousins, yeah, nice.
I haven't seen him in a while. Yeah, very cool. So here's a question for you. What do you think that you learned in your early days of leadership that actually apply to your current leadership duties?
I would say always try not to jump into fast conclusions. That's probably the one that what you would find is that on the surface, sometimes things look a certain way, but as you start digging deeper, you'll find out that there is more there than you realize. So that's the one thing that I learned early on, and it's still relevant today. If there's a situation, if it looks like the sky is falling, just stay calm and try to understand the situation as best as you could before you come to a conclusion one way or another.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Nice advice there. I gotta say, like, I love that we've learned today how passionate you are about people, and that's what drove you into leadership. Because sometimes you run into folks that want to be the leader because they want control, and they want to be the one that dictates stuff, and they, you know, feel that their opinion is the one that needs to rule everything. Whereas you seem to be more on the people focused side, and things like breaking down silos and enabling people to do what they need to do in order to do their job is like, you know, it sounds like you're coming from the right place when you want to be a leader.
Yeah. So what really attracts me to leadership is having an impact on people's careers and their lives too, because the two are intertwined. What I've learned also early on is that, again, people are people, and you can't decouple their personal lives from their work life. So when I do one-on-ones with my guys, I genuinely want to know what is important in your life, your family, what's keeping you busy, because that directly impacts your performance at work. And the more I understand you as an individual, the more I will be able to, you know, work more closely with you and make sure that you're performing your best, right? So it's the impact that really drives me. You know, with a certain role comes some authority, some comes with some power, but I think those are just I don't know if you want to call them after effects. The most important thing is to be able to bring people together, people from diverse backgrounds, people from different, you know, upbringings, people from different races, people from different age groups, and be able to get the best out of each one of them as a cohesive unit, right? That's really what the focus is. And I've always said that I probably could be better at a lot of things that I do today. So I'll give you an example. You know, I work for a sales organization. I probably could be better at maybe understanding the business a little bit better. I could probably be better at, you know, understanding our numbers a little bit better. But if I have to choose between, you know, spending my time on the business itself or spending my time on, you know, our numbers, our financial numbers, or spending my time with people and making sure they have what they need to do their best, I'll pick the people part any day. I think it's the most important role that I have, is to make sure that the team is enabled, they have the support they need, whatever that is, and take obstacles out of their way. So
what is your, you know, it's one thing to get people going when they've already been with you and they've worked for you for a while. What is your approach to recruiting people? Like, are you looking for very specific things when you are searching the market for candidates?
yeah, so the approach I've always taken, at least recently anyway, is that I'm always looking for great talent. We should always be looking for great talent, because you don't know when you're going to need that next resource. But more importantly, sometimes you find that you find a great candidate, or you find a great resource that you can bring on board, even if you don't know where you're going to place them. And we've done that a couple of times. Again, in the entrepreneurial spirit, we are in business to take care of our customers. And what that really translates to is sometimes we don't even know what we need because we don't have all the answers, right? So it's happened a few times where somebody said, hey, I know X, Y, and Z, and they're leaving their current role, and here's their situation. I would say, you know what? I'm going to talk to them. Just have that conversation. Just start with that, just to see what drives them, what motivates them, and try to map back to see, you know, within our business, can we find a place for this person? The second part of your question, which is what I look for in an individual, there's the perfect unicorn. So if you take a look at our solutions architects, we want them to be a generalist first, which means that they can carry on a foundational conversation with the customer, get to understand their business requirements, and be able to propose a solution. But what we drive for is for folks that can actually build relationships with customers. They need to be technical enough. You can, if you want to get skilled up on GCP, you can do that. If you want to get skilled up on Azure, you can do that. If you want to get skilled up on F5, you can do that. The materials are out there. But the soft skills are the ones that we make sure we definitely get right, because all the other things could be learned. Somebody who's passionate about taking care of customers, you can't teach that. Somebody who's passionate about, delivering quality output, you can't teach that, right? So those elements need to be there. And then, if they happen to have the right skill set for this particular role that we're looking for, so if we're looking for a networking SA, if they happen to have a CCIE or a CCNP, that's secondary to the soft skills that I've already listed. Obviously, there's teamwork there. There's being able to present a solution, because no matter how great a solution is, if you can't explain it to somebody, well, that's not very useful either, right? So those are some of the things we look for. So I emphasize soft skills very heavily, and that's the message that I give to my team as well. And even if we have folks on the team that maybe need to brush up on their soft skills, we'll point that out, right? So it can't just be about technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got Sebastian commenting as well, agreeing with soft skills. I gotta say, I've been using my soft skills a lot this week. The other question I wanted to ask you, so given pandemic, everybody's working from home, you are somebody who has already had lots of experience working with and leading remote teams before. Like, you must be taking this in stride at this point.
Yeah, it's interesting. The pandemic actually happened about 3 months into when the company, when the two companies amalgamated, but also, I took on the new role. So there was a lot of change that was happening. So needless to say, I was really busy for the probably first 3 months of the pandemic, but the past month things have kind of stabilized, which makes sense, because when you find yourself in a new role, or you're going through an integration, there's just a lot of moving pieces there. You're also trying to run a business as well, but we have a very strong culture. I think that makes a huge difference. The good thing is, even though I took on a much bigger team, I did get an opportunity to start building relationships with folks that I wasn't leading at the time, because remember, I was leading the Western Canadian team before the acquisition, and then I took on the national role. So I actually did have an opportunity before the pandemic started to actually travel. I was doing quite a bit of travel, like every 2 weeks. I was in Toronto just to spend more time with the team there. Again, going back to relationships and people, very, very important. So I knew that was one of the things I had to do when I took on the role, is just to spend a lot of time there. Just that way you can have that face-to-face relationship building. But yeah, we have a great team. We do everything that we can to bring the teams together, whether that's smaller pockets at the branch level, or we can't have meetings that are too big. I can't have all 90 folks on my team on a call every single week. That's just not realistic. But individual teams have their meetings, and I meet with the managers on my team. But yeah, it's going really well. We're trying to be creative. That's what this is. This is new for everybody, right? So
yeah. And are you finding you're having to stay in contact with people a lot more during times like this? Like, people need more check-ins, or you give people more space during times like this, or do you think there's any differences?
So when it started, I think we overdid it, but I would rather overdo than underdo. So in the beginning, we really didn't know how each individual person was going to take this situation we found ourselves in. But then as time went on, we were able to kind of gauge what people needed and scale back a little bit where you found necessary. So I'm finding that the frequency of meeting people that I normally will meet has kind of gone back to pre-COVID days. It's just that now it's virtual. But if we were meeting once every 2 weeks or once every week. We've kind of just gone back to that now. So yeah, no, I think the physical component is in there, but we've kind of gone back to where we used to be. So
very cool. We are running up on time here, so I want to be cognizant of that, and we'll end right on the hour. We did get one other comment here from Sebastian. Love to connect with the team if they're looking for more F5 or DevOps consultants. So happy to connect you with Sebastian, but he's been out there.
Yeah, we're always looking for great people. So yeah, if you're interested, come talk to me. So
cool. Awesome. Any departing words, advice for people looking to come up in their career and get as far as Alhagie's gotten?
So the one thing I would like to emphasize is figure out what it is that you're passionate about. And you know what, money is important. We all have to pay bills, but money will follow. You have to find out what your passion is, follow your passion, and there's no shortcut there. You got to work really hard, right? So, there's going to be sweat, but the most important thing is passion. And, when it comes to, I guess, building relationships, just bring it down to the most basic level. Just treat people like people, something as simple as, when we used to go to the office, I will make sure that every single person that's in the office that day, whether they're on my team or not, I take 10 seconds just to say, hi, boo, how are you doing? How's your day today? Maybe you just say, I'm doing good, and that's it, but at least just make an effort. So something as simple as that makes a huge difference because really it just comes down to people. And just because you're not on the same team with somebody doesn't mean that you shouldn't make an effort to say hi to them in the office, or just because you don't need something from somebody this very moment doesn't mean you shouldn't say hi to them. So just build those relationships, right? Just build them.
Very cool. I know every time that I've ever been into the Scalar CDW office and we've been in there, but not necessarily meeting with you, you always come by and say hi, and then go about everything. But you always make a point of coming and say hi. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Really cool. All right, that is it. Thank you very much, Alhagie, for joining me on this discussion. And I think from all the comments that we have, it is very clear that you have so far been one of the most popular guests that we've had on. So really excited to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I'm glad I was able to spend time with you today. Thank you. Have a good day.
That was great. All right, see you, Alhagie.
All right, bye.
Bye now. Thanks for checking this out today. If you're watching via YouTube right now, go ahead and click subscribe down below. Also click the bell for notifications. That way you will find out when we are dropping a new video or when we're going live. Also, there's darylandboo.com. If you head over to that, leave your name and email address, we will drop a weekly technical newsletter in your inbox every Monday. Also, this is available via podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify. Head over to one of those, hit subscribe, and you'll be able to listen to us in the car on your commute or during a walk or a run. Thank you very much, and we will see you next time.